polling shows that Americans actually seem to be growing less empathetic to the transgender cause. But what's behind it? What's going on here? Well, some activists and movement leaders think that it is due to the transgender movement's confrontational and accusatory approach. And I'm not saying that. This lengthy piece published in the New York Times this week really did delve into it. So on social media in particular,
Ana Kasparian unloads on trans activists that just ruin it for everybody. Let's see what Ana Kasparian has to say.
Some of you might have seen time and time again, like advocates for the cause being pretty aggressive. And look, it comes from a good place. This is just about the tactics, right? They're aggressively going after anyone they see as like stepping out of line, saying anything that might be deemed insensitive toward the trans community. For example, after a Democratic congressman defended parents who expressed concern about transgender athletes competing against their young daughters, a local party official and ally compared him to a Nazi cooperator. Okay, and a group called Neighbors Against Hate organized a protest outside his office. But look, the example that was detailed in this piece that really bothered me is the one I'm about to detail, okay? So last week, as we all know, Nancy Mace, and she's continued it like this week. Like she's engaging in this really disgusting harassment campaign against an incoming transgender member of Congress. First, openly transgender member of Congress to, serve in the House. And her name is Sarah McBride. And just preemptively off the, right after the election where Trump proved to be successful, partly because of airing an ad about Democrats' support for transgender people, you have Nancy Mace try to capitalize on that, try to kind of piggyback off of that. And that's why I believe she's been attacking Sarah McBride pretty aggressively. But you would think the transgender community, or at least the activists, would support Sarah McBride and want to protect her, but that unfortunately has not been the case. In fact, they are saying that she is a voice for her constituents rather than a voice for the transgender movement. And then they accused her of capitulating to the right. She has done no such thing at all. Okay, the fact that now she's getting this kind of hate from activists really upsets me. But look, that kind of strategy also doesn't really seem to be working. It's actually been pretty counterproductive for the transgender community. More than 24 red states now limit access to transition medical treatment. And public opinion is actually trending in the opposite direction that these advocates were pushing for. Fewer Americans today than 2 years ago say they support allowing children to undergo gender transition treatment, according to the Public Religion Research Institute. I will say the Public Religion Research Institute very clearly would have a bias. So I would take their data with some grain of salt. But nonetheless, you kind of see it when it comes to public opinion. So I remember in 2016, when Republicans were trying to make the bathroom issue a big deal.
First of all, I still love how they always try to make it, the Republicans make it. No, you guys made it a big deal. Like the left are the ones that made it a big deal. Was it right-wingers that told Target, hey, Target, yeah, go ahead and allow transgenders to use the girls' bathroom and stuff? Like, was it Republicans that did that? No. Target did that because of lefties, because lefties made that a big deal. So Target was like, oh, yeah. I want to come on here and give more credit to Ana Kasparian and try to be more generous because, listen, they have been going through awakening, but sometimes it's hard because they're still coming at it with this leftist lens. So, look, I'm going to try to be generous here. It's good that she's at least calling out the activists because, yeah, the activists truly do indeed ruin it for everyone. The activists are overbearing. They're violent. They're very authoritarian. They just want you to do what they want, and they're not afraid of resorting to low tactics or even violence to get what they want. So indeed, the activists are horrible, and I agree with that. One thing I will disagree with Anna on, though, is that it's coming from a good place. I don't think a lot of this is coming from a good place. I think the ones that actually are coming from a good place don't resort to those tactics. They don't resort to violence, or they don't resort to harassment. The ones that are actually coming from a good place. The ones that coming from a good place eventually wake up and realize, hey, yeah, this isn't cool, man. Listen, I'm all for trans rights or what have you, but I'm not down with whatever they're doing over here. As far as Nancy Mace goes, she calls it a harassment campaign. Now, listen, I haven't followed this too closely. The only thing I've seen Nancy Mace do was just the whole, the whole bathroom thing where it's women's and men's bathroom. That's the only thing I've seen. But if I'm wrong on that, if she's done more, if she's actually led a harassment campaign, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and subscribe to if you enjoy content like this. Let's continue.
How the gay community won over the hearts and minds of Americans. It took a tremendous amount of patience. It took, almost like a public education campaign, so people could actually familiarize themselves with gay people in this country. But more importantly, they made an effort to make clear, we're not a threat. We're just like everyone else, So I think that the patience is a difficult thing to have. I am an impatient person. And when I feel that I've been wronged or in whatever way discriminated against, whether it's because I'm a woman or whatever reason, you do feel that urge, that instinct to get defensive, to lash out. But you have to kind of think about what the bigger picture is and how this is really a persuasion campaign. And when your first line is to attack the person who isn't fully on board immediately, well, then you've just lost someone who might have actually been receptive if you were willing to just pause for a minute, take a breath if you need to, but come back and try a different way of getting that individual to understand where you're coming from. And that takes a lot of work. It's very difficult. But I do think, look, here's the problem though. This is the problem I had with the piece. And I think this is a problem that the Democratic Party has overall with every social issue. I don't think that the majority of transgender activists or transgender people behave like this. I don't think the majority of them are aggressive or combative. I have a friend who's transgender. She is not like this at all. And in fact, she can't stand that this is the way, people think of trans activists. It's a small group of very loud people and they get all the attention, and they really need to consider how the movement at large feels about the tactics they're deploying. Because it's not just about making people who aren't on board feel comfortable. It's about winning. And if they're deploying tactics that lead to losing, well, then the movement overall is obviously going to be upset about that. And so I think more patience, more coordination, but also for those who have fallen prey to this ideology that everyone who's trans acts like this, or everyone who's a trans activist acts like this, it's just not true. It's a small.
She is right about that. One thing I would like to add, though, is that the thing is that when there are people who come out against this stuff, well, then they're automatically seen as no longer allies, even if they are gay or if they are trans. She's absolutely correct about the gay movement. It wasn't why the gay movement won at the end was because they weren't harassing or beating people up or resorting to harsh tactics in order to get what they want. No, it did take time, and it was a whole thing. And then eventually, people were just like, yeah, whatever, But with the whole trans thing, it wasn't like that at all. And yes, it is a very vocal minority that's ruining it for the majority. The thing is, though, is that when there are people that come out and say, hey, we're not for that, they automatically get excluded from the club. Like gays against groomers, for instance, right? That's the whole point of gays against groomers, is that they are gay people that are like, hey, listen, there's a lot of grooming going on. We're not part of that. We're not part of this leftist ideology that's for grooming children into, whatever. And, but then gays against groomers get called right-wing extremists, anti-gay, blah, 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 blah. They get labeled all these things. And not just by these vocal minority. I'm pretty sure Anna agrees that gays against groomer is bad. I don't have footage of her saying so, but I'm willing to bet that Anna is still yeah, gays against groomers are kind of extreme. Or if there's detransitioners, people who had transitioned, and then they detransition and they say, yeah, it's bad and stuff. Oh, well, they weren't really trans in the first place. That's part of the problem too. If you want to shut out this vocal minority, you need to boost up the people that are like, hey, we are not part of this minority. Otherwise, the vocal minority are going to continue to reign. For the most part, I agree with Anna on this, but there still needs a lot of work to be done when it comes to this little awakening journey that she's on. But what do you guys think? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed today's video. And if you did enjoy today's video, I got a whole screen full of content for you to click on and enjoy.